time for stock picks. Today we are plunging into the tech space with Oracle, Samsung and SK Hynix. Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore joins us to share his insights on the counters. Viv, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. I'm assuming that these three counters are mainly a bet on that AI boom story.
Yes, it most certainly is. As you may know, that I'm quite interested in the whole AI sector and to actually run a fund, directly involved in it. So obviously, when I look at most stocks nowadays, considering just how strong AI has been over the last couple of years in terms of a market driver, I tend to look at it from that point of view.
Okay. All right. Let's start with your first pick, Oracle. Maybe let's get clarity on what that company does. It's more of a software play. I know it does also have a cloud unit as well. Walk us through that and why you're actually seeing upside in that counter.
Well, Oracle basically, I think most people probably know it as a database, company. So databases, as you know, basically huge collections of data that a company controls or gets, and they need to be analyzed, they need to be basically stored, they need to be, referenced at particular points in time. And Oracle has become, or became the go-to provider for that particular service. However, in recent years, it has transformed itself into more of a cloud play. And the particular kind of cloud play it has, it's a little different from what we've seen in Azure, for instance, or for instance, Amazon Web Services and so on, where we see a company that's more focused on, the enterprise, utility in terms of cloud. And if AI is going to take off, in a significant way, it has to result in a huge increase in, productivity, a huge increase in, the amount of usage people get from it in terms of not just like, drawing pretty pictures, but also making your business more productive, making your enterprise more efficient. And Oracle is emerging as the, like I said, the go-to play in that particular sector with regards to more of a focus, cloud solution for enterprises.
And you mentioned that its cloud services are not as similar as the likes of Microsoft or an AWS. Then who is its competitor in that field?
Well, it is like, those are the competitors, but this is the aspect of that sector that it's going after. Because it's more about high performance, mission critical kind of like work that is doing on its particular web service. And if you look at the way AI is developing at the moment, we now have these thinking models. In the past, it was basically, you ask a question, it gives you an answer as quickly as possible. It's like the first kind of thing. It's like if I ask you a question, I say the first thing that comes to mind and you give me the answer. That's how it used to be. Now, what you're doing is you're seeing these things take, a few minutes, sometimes even longer, to think through things. And if you use these models now, you'll see this facility to actually make it work a bit longer on a problem to give you a better answer. And I think that's going to be something that becomes more important over time. And as that becomes more important, you are going to rely on the cloud infrastructure to a larger and larger extent for that.
All right, let's move over to your next pick, that being SK Hynix. Last time we spoke, you chose Micron in that space, the memory space in the chips market, really coming out quite important. You've mentioned that the memory players are quite important as that industry grows, as there's needs for storage in the AI industry.
Yeah, look, as technology develops, of course, I mentioned to you that we are seeing, more and more, evolution in terms of how the technology is being used and developed. Memory is becoming more and more important. In fact, the last two, companies talking about Samsung as well, also in the memory space. So SK Hynix is the other player with Micron and Samsung in this particular space. Micron's done reasonably well over the last few months since I picked it. SK Hynix has also done really well. I do think that, again, you're pretty much coming down to three things in the world that provide this particular service. It's Samsung, it's SK Hynix, and it's Micron. And again, as we look at developments going forward, yes, we are seeing issues with both SK Hynix and Samsung with regards to the tariffs. But with the tariffs, Trump's tariffs come and go. You clearly can't rely on just how large or important they're going to be going forward, because we've seen, for instance, a dinner and maybe a donation from Samsung, it goes from NVIDIA, gets you, the ability to sell chips to China. Who knows what might be done with these South Korean companies? But yeah, I do think that if you're looking at the way technology is going, memory is going to become more important. SK Hynix, like I said, is one of the three players out there that's really important in this particular sector.
And talk to me about, I guess, strategic partnerships within that space, SK's partnership in particular with Intel, and does that, I guess, benefit it or serve it better in the US market, considering Intel's ties to Trump as well, with the Trump administration looking to buy a stake in Intel?
Yeah, look, I don't think it bought a stake. I think it took a stake.
Okay.
I think that's the way to refer to things. They took a stake in Intel. What was given in exchange for that is like a different story. So yeah, here's the thing, right? Despite obviously the concerns we have, this is actually a very logical move for Trump to do.
Yeah.
The way the chip market works is like this. It's designed by different companies, NVIDIA, AMD, and so on. It's basically made by a single company in Taiwan called TSMC. TSMC, Taiwan, is really close to China. In fact, China thinks Taiwan is part of China. And there has been, fears for a long, long time that China is going to take over Taiwan in some way. Some people fear military, some people say more political, because they've had success in actually, determining who the government of Taiwan is and so on. But if the Taiwanese basically ever fall in terms of like either militarily or politically under the total influence of China, then the number one source, the only source rather, of these chips goes away for the US. And the whole thing where the US basically now controls global chip supply kind of reverses, and now it becomes the Chinese who control global chip supply. If you had to remove Taiwan from the map tomorrow, the number one player in the world is Intel. Okay, and Intel basically, the US has to support it because it's not productive at the moment. They have massive internal issues, political, malaise in the company, etc. But if you basically are going to be going to war, in inverted commas, maybe in real, not inverted commas, in the future with China, you want your own internal supply of chips, something not dependent or not basically as geographically close to China as Taiwan is. And so it makes sense from that point of view. Economically, probably not. Intel has fallen far, far behind in terms of its ability to produce compared to TSMC, but it is second. That cannot be denied. Yeah.
All right. Lastly, the last pick rather is Samsung. You mentioned also operating in that memory space like SK, but also a diversified business making phones as well. There's so much that Samsung does. Why do you like this counter, Viv?
Look, I do think that Samsung, it's come down a little bit. It's obviously recovered a little while recently, but it has been down from highs. I do think that with regards to the chip sector, it's good to cover all the bases out there. If you're looking at what's available in terms of the memory market, Samsung is obviously a player there. They do have problems with regards to the Chinese total production. I think it's about a third or so of their total production. China, obviously the US wants to change that. But I think that if you're looking at some of the moves been happening with regards to what's happening with TSMC, people looking to diversify tools production out there. Samsung is a player in that space. People are not valuing it in the same way they're valuing the NVIDIA of the world or valuing some of the other chip players out there. But Samsung is one of these players in this market. And I think that, it is not extraordinarily expensive at the moment. It's not something where you can say, okay, this is a company that you're buying at an incredibly high P ratio. P ratio right now is 15. You know what I mean? And if you look at the upside potential from the company in terms of, being able to take a bigger slice of that AI pie, I think it's a hugely, was undervalued opportunity at the moment.
All right, so a cheaper entry point into that AI boom story. But because it's so diversified, are you not concerned of the risks that could play out in the other businesses?
To a certain extent, yes. But I mean, the most valuable company in the world is a company that designs, the chips. Doesn't make the chips, doesn't basically do anything else. It's the most valuable company in the world, $4.5 trillion basically. That's NVIDIA. And if you look at the kind of, base that Samsung has in terms of technology, the base that Samsung has in terms of other things like manufacturing and so on, it's more diversified, but it also gives you more opportunity, and it's a fraction of the price of a company like NVIDIA at the moment. Obviously, you can't say NVIDIA is undervalued because also overvalued because it's been making huge returns, and it is the best out there. I'm just saying in a market where there are possibly going to be people looking for other opportunities. Intel at one point in time was the dominant player in the chip sector, and you may look at AMD and say, hey, maybe that's not something. Look at NVIDIA and say, what can they do? It's they're not playing in the same space as Intel. But these technologies do change. You make the right technical decision sometimes, and it can give you a huge advantage going forward.
All right, let's leave it there then, Viv. Thanks so much for your time and sharing your insights with us this afternoon. Now, that was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.